What is up, everyone? Justin Bales here with another edition of our MLB DFS DraftKings Picks, this time for Monday, August 9th. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click the little bell to turn the notifications on. Also, go ahead and comment your favorite plays of the smaller slate tonight in the comments, and I will discuss with anyone that does so. The last time I was on pod was on Thursday, I believe, which was a split slate. Early was 5 games, late was 6 games. What happened was I broke down both slates, and it turns out on the early slate, my core plays for DFS Karma actually earned a takedown, came in first in the $27 league. So that was pretty nice, and now we're back to another smaller 5-game slate, which I know a lot of people don't like, but I do believe there are some advantages here. Ben has also been playing at a high level with his optimal core, which is meant more for cash games, but also, single entries. And realistically, you can throw it in tournaments if you want, but it is designed more for cash. On those, you can find our core plays under the subscriptions tab, I guess, on dfskarma.com, or go to the description below, and you can find our core plays, final thoughts, our projections, which Sam has done an outstanding job creating those. All of our articles, our content, our social media, everything in the description of this video. You can just click right there and it will take you to it. But let's get down to a pretty short and sweet, straightforward 5-game slate on DraftKings. We have a 4-game slate on FanDuel because they opted to start around the 8 p.m. games, not the 6:10 game, which, if you don't know, Cincinnati-Cleveland plays at 6:10. Then the next set of games is at 8, with Miami-San Diego finally playing at 10 tonight. At pitcher, it seems relatively straightforward. Freddie Peralta is the top option. The matchup is fantastic against the Chicago Cubs. They went on a fire sale at the trade deadline, although they have had guys that have produced well. Rafael Ortega, moving into the leadoff spot, he has looked good. They strike out by far at the highest rate on the slate. No one is even close to them over the last 14 days. When you add in that Freddie Peralta is the top strikeout pitcher on the slate, it's just kind of a matchup made in heaven. He has the second best Vegas line. The top line goes to Joe Musgrove, who will be the guy that you want to pair with him in cash. I think it's pretty simple that at 10.5, Freddie Peralta is your SP1. At only 8.5, when he should be closer to about 10 tonight, Joe Musgrove will probably be your SP2. Outside of those two, I believe that there are some solid options that you can use in tournaments, but it's pretty clear cut that those two are the top plays of the slate. And even if you wanted to use both of them and then get weirder with your stacks or your one-off hitters or whatever in tournaments, I do think that that's 100% fine. If you're looking for pitchers elsewhere in tournaments, I believe that Lucas Giolito for 9,300 makes a very good option against the Minnesota Twins. I have no issues on DraftKings with Luis Castillo. The only problem is you really probably do want to play Freddie Peralta, and if you're playing Peralta, that means you're spending $20,500 on 2 pitchers, because Castillo's finally up to 10,000, which is a pretty penny, and you're going to have to find really cheap hitters. And then the other option that I would consider would be Jameson Taillon at 7,800 gets a good matchup against the Royals, who have really been struggling, and it's just a little too cheap of a price tag. So I believe that those 3 are probably where you're looking at in tournaments. I don't necessarily love any of the trio. I think they're essentially, you could say that Joe Musgrove and Freddie Peralta are tier 1, and then that trio is probably more towards tier 3 than putting them directly under in tier 2. I think it's a pretty wide gap when you're looking at it. So for me, it feels like I'm probably just going to eat the chalk at pitcher, especially because there's only 5 games with Peralta and Musgrove. But you can get a little weird, and there are a few more options with some upside that I do believe make sense. Moving to stacks, I think that there's a few options that you can consider. The Twins will be utilizing multiple pitchers. They have an opener in Burrows. They have Barnes as their long reliever. He's struggled in limited innings. I think he has 8.2 innings on the season, and he's really struggled in that. So the Chicago White Sox stand out. They make a really good option. Outside of that, you also have the New York Yankees and the Milwaukee Brewers. I think that those two teams can be considered on this slate as well. My favorite team is probably the Cincinnati Reds. You obviously only get them on DraftKings. They aren't available on FanDuel, but they get a great matchup against Sam Hentges. I don't think he's a good pitcher. He has the worst xFIP on the slate. I believe he does give up some home runs. It's just a really good matchup for the Reds, although they are an offense that is significantly better in Cincinnati, and obviously they'll be moving to Cleveland for this game. So there's a little bit of risk. With that being said, it's just not a matchup that I'm willing to avoid them, especially because they've been arguably the hottest offense in the MLB over the last 14 days. So on FanDuel, I think I would probably rank them the White Sox, the Yankees, the Brewers on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings, I would have the Reds, the White Sox, the Yankees, the Brewers. That would probably be where I'm at. I don't think that this is really a slate to get weird. By that, I mean, I don't think like you're going to stack Miami just because Joe Musgrove's owned. I don't think you'll stack the Cubs just because Freddie Peralta's owned. Even though the wind is blowing out, I think if you want to do something about that and you like the weather, I think you're probably just stacking Milwaukee. I do believe some people were talking about it in Discord. I don't personally care at this point because it's 10 a.m. when I'm recording this. But there are some weather concerns in Chicago. Apparently, there's supposed to be thunderstorms. To me, I'm going to wait. I don't even check weather, honestly. In terms of rain, I'll look at wind and everything. But in terms of rain, I don't even look at weather until probably like an hour before the slate's about to lock, because it just doesn't matter that much to me. Weather changes all the time. We see it where like an hour before lock something looks really bad, and then 30 minutes before, it looks like they're going to play throughout the night. So I'm not really going to be concerned with the weather in Chicago throughout this pod. I'm just going to treat it like it's going to go into play, and that the wind's going to be blowing out around 10 miles an hour, just like it's projected to do. But we can move to position by position. At catcher, I believe that the top option, it has to be Omar Narvaez. He's only 3,800, hitting really in the heart of the Milwaukee lineup. He gets a plus matchup against Alec Mills, obviously playing in Chicago where the wind is expected to be blowing out. So I think that he's pretty clear-cut the top option. I believe for $1,000 cheaper than him, if you want to use someone like Tucker Barnhart, feel free. I don't necessarily love the lefty-lefty matchup, but it's not like Hentges is going to throw overly deep into this game, I would assume anyway. If you want to spend all the way up, Salvador Perez is the option that I would attack. I don't really like Mitch Garver in the matchup against Giolito. I don't like Wilson Contreras against Freddie Peralta. I think that Perez against Taillon is 100% viable, especially at home, where the Kansas City Royals have just been a better offense throughout the season. And then if you're truly looking to punt, I mean, you could take a shot on someone like Austin Hedges. He's 2K. I don't love the matchup against Castillo, but for a 2K punter or a 2K punt at catcher, it's relatively fine. I think that I would probably focus heavily on Omar Narvaez if you can, and then probably move to someone like Tucker Barnhart if you need to save some salary, though. At first base, there are a few options that I feel like make sense. You can pay up for Jose Abreu. I have no problems with that. If you want to use either Cincinnati guy, I don't have any issues with that. That's Joey Votto and Mike Moustakas. The problem is they're both extremely expensive, well over 5K. And it's the lefty-lefty matchup where both of them are drastically better against right-handed pitching. So with them hitting near the top of the order, you're probably going to get 2 at-bats minimum against a lefty, whereas you really want to pay that kind of price for them against a right-handed pitcher. I think that Luke Voit, assuming he's playing, is at 3,700. It's just way too cheap, especially for the matchup that the Yankees get. So I feel like he's probably a guy that you're really looking at tonight. And then at 2,900, if you need to save salary, Rowdy Tellez, it's just still really a ridiculous price tag. He obviously gets the bump from playing in Chicago against Alec Mills. So I do think that he's a very good option at first base. At second base, I think really it comes down to multiple players. I think this is a really good spot for several options. The most expensive of them, I would say, would be Jonathan India at 4,800. He's been better against right-handed pitching too, which is kind of an issue, but I'm not really going to take that into much consideration because he's a rookie. It's not like he has a ridiculously large sample size or anything, and obviously I do love the matchup. If you want to drop down a little, DJ LeMahieu in a plus matchup leading off at 4,600 is 100% viable. He can also be used at first base. You have Cesar Hernandez at 4,200. Once again, I really like the matchup for him and the White Sox, so I have no problems really using him in all leagues on this slate. And then if you're looking to spend down a little bit more, Colton Wong is 3,600. Obviously, we love the Brewers in Chicago tonight, so once again, no issues with that. The big question mark that I feel like on this slate is that Whit Merrifield has dropped to 3,500. It's not like he hasn't been playing overly well, but he also hasn't been playing that bad. His 5 stolen bases over his last 10 games, he's flashed literally no power, not a single extra base hit over that span. But his upside does come through steals, so it's not like it really matters too much whether he's showing that power right now or not. He's also been drastically better at home, and they'll be playing in Kansas City tonight. So at 3,500, you're going to at least have to consider Whit Merrifield just because he's realistically a 5K hitter. So at 3,500, even on like a small slate where it seems like the majority of players realistically are a little underpriced, so it's going to be pretty easy to plug in who you want. Merrifield at 35 is just a gross misprice by DraftKings tonight. At third base, it's kind of tough. I'm not 100% sure where I want to go here. I think you can go with, obviously you can play someone like Mike Moustakas, anyone that we talked about before. I don't have any issues with. Eugenio Suarez, I wish he was hitting higher in the lineup, but I do believe for 4,000 you can use him. If you want to spend up, though, I think Eduardo Escobar and Yoan Moncada are probably my 2 favorite options. They're 100 off of each other. I think if I had to pick between the 2 right now, I would say Escobar over Moncada, but 100% fine with either of them. I also am completely okay with someone like Rougned Odor at 3,900. And if you can get all the way to 6K, Manny Machado continues to play at an extremely high level. And I don't like the matchup against Thompson, but it's also not really a matchup that I'm going to be scared away from just because he's due for so much regression because he's been throwing so well. So I have really no problems paying up to 6K for Machado because I don't believe many people will be doing that tonight. At shortstop, if you can get up to Tim Anderson or up to Willy Adames, 100% feel free. They are personally my favorite 2 options on the slate. I also believe 100% if you can't get there, Kyle Farmer is playing just at an extremely high level. He is one of the Reds that does hit actually better against left-handed pitching, and he's moved up to probably 6th in their lineup. He could hit as high as 5th potentially, but I would assume he's hitting 6th. And he's just in an absolute elite spot. I'm honestly kind of shocked that he's still under 4,000 at this point. Other options, Gleyber Torres at 3,700. Jake Cronenworth is now shortstop eligible along with second base. There are significantly more second basemen that I think are higher level options. So if you're using Cronenworth, you're probably going to use him at shortstop. But he's 4,000. I prefer Kyle Farmer much more than both of them, but they are decent pivots off of him. And then obviously, once again, if you can pay up Tim Anderson at 6'1" or Willy Adames at 55, I don't have really any issues with either one of them. The outfield is extremely interesting tonight because there are a lot of spend-up options that I feel make really good plays. Jesse Winker at 5,600, 100% fine with him, even in the lefty-lefty matchup. Aaron Judge, Joey Gallo, 100% cool with them. You can say Giancarlo Stanton at only 4,500. He's a little bit cheaper of a way to get a piece of that outfield. The guy that sticks out the most to me has to be Nick Castellanos. He gets the matchup against the lefty. He's a dominant lefty hitter, or he's a dominant right-handed hitter against left-handed pitching. And he's only 4,000, which once again is one of the worst misprices on the entire slate. Other options that I feel relatively comfortable using, Lewis Robert at 3,400 is a discount, assuming he returns to the lineup tonight. I don't really care, even if they hit him last at 3,400 is just an absurd price tag for him. He will be much closer to 5K once he gets healthy. We kind of saw this with Eloy Jimenez, who has settled in around the mid-4 range, who I also believe he's completely fine. You can use any of the Milwaukee guys. Christian Yelich at 4,900 still feels a little cheap, but I get that he's not necessarily having the best season and he's coming back. So I'm fine with him just against Alec Mills. I really like the matchup. The other Milwaukee guys I don't really have any issues with. It's just obviously the higher they're hitting up in the order, the significantly better they are. Like Lorenzo Cain hitting, 5th is much better than him hitting 8th. Outside of that, I think there are a few other guys that you can use. Just a couple that I'd like to outline. Hunter Dozier at 2,700 is too cheap. Miles Straw at 2,200, even in a tough matchup, is just a ridiculous price tag. Assuming he's starting, Andrew Benintendi at 3,000 is way too cheap. You can even use a guy like Ryan O'Hearn at 2,300. Max Kepler, I don't have any issues with him, although strictly GPP because of the matchup against Giolito. Overall, though, the guys that I'm probably willing to lock in depending on roster construction, Nick Castellanos is number 1, followed by Lewis Robert, who's 3,400. The price tag just doesn't really make any sense to me. We can wrap up this quicker show because there's only 5 games tonight with a home run call. And I think I'm going to go with Nick Castellanos tonight. So relatively cheap home run from him. Once again, you can visit our website, dfskarma.com, and find all of our free content, our articles. That's also where you can get our Core Plays subscription. You can join our Discord chat 100% for free. You don't need to pay anything to get in, but then obviously to access the premium chats, you will need a subscription. But we also have free chats where we talk MLB, NFL, everything all the time. Speaking of NFL, very quickly, you can get our NFL Preseason Package. It's $20 for the entire preseason, which we'll be giving cores for basically every slate. Ben and I each posted cores for the Hall of Fame game, cashed on that end, so it was a very good Thursday last week, and we'll be looking to do so again coming up. So go ahead and get that. Also, check out our sister site, Bet Karma, which has amazing tools. You can find all kinds of trends. You can find a bunch of props for MLB. It's coming up for NFL as well. So check out dfskarma.com and Bet Karma. Give this video a thumbs up and comment who your favorite plays of tonight's slate are. Until then, good luck.